Hey everyone, this is John with How to Film Weddings, and we are talking today about consultations, about booking brides, about our sales calls, about all kinds of fun things. I have a special guest from the state of Texas with me, Philip Harbuck, and he is awesome and a stud, and he's with Sight and Sound Films. I'm going to let him talk a little bit about himself, but today, the point of today is we're really trying to just figure out what we want to do on our initial consultations with our brides. There was a post in the WFA group the other day, the Wedding Film Academy group, just asking about top questions, and Philip had a great answer, and I just sent him a message and said, hey, what are you doing? I want to talk to you on the podcast about this. So this is the first time where I, as in John, am interviewing a guest without Nick being here. So like, I feel like I'm kind of leaving Nick out, which is kind of fun for me because he kind of thinks he's the host of the show. He keeps calling me the co-host, like he's the host, and that's not it. So this is the first one of these. We're going to start doing some interviews with different people. So anyway, Philip, say hello, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from. Just give us a little bit of the lowdown on you.
Yeah. Well, thanks, John, for having me on board.
You bet.
And as the first guest, according to this experience, you might not ever do this again. So
exactly.
Yeah, I'm from Texas. So currently I'm in my hometown, Lufkin, Texas, which is East Texas. It's about 2 hours north of Houston. And this is my 6th year in wedding video, my 3rd year full time.
Okay.
So I had a numerous amount of jobs before this. Most importantly, I was a commercial plumber before I got into video. But yeah, I had done videos since I was in high school and always loved it. And so when the DSLR came along and changed the game, it was very easy for me to step back into it. My wife was a wedding photographer part-time when I met her, and so when we married, she started, she was still shooting some weddings, and she said, hey, why don't you tag along and start shooting some video? And yeah, that started the whole thing 6 years ago. So
awesome. And so you're in Lufkin, Texas. In like on your site, it basically says Houston, Austin, Dallas, San Antonio. So you're like northeast of Houston, southeast of Dallas, northeast of San Antonio. You're just kind of in there in East Texas.
Yeah, so it's an interesting, with kind of how I've noticed wedding videographers start out, they usually will shoot, obviously, local brides, and then how they kind of grow their area is, referrals from those brides, and they, they trust, and then a sister lives off somewhere, and you start growing your geographical area. I did it kind of opposite, and it's just how it happened. I had done some local weddings, and then I got a big one in Kerrville, which is about 8 hours from me.
Okay.
And because of that one, it's kind of one where you can track every single wedding that leads to another. Because of that one, I started shooting in Houston more. Because of that, I started shooting in Dallas and then Austin, and it grew my Texas area way quicker than my local area.
And Texas is not a small state, so I've noticed that. So it's not like you can drive from one side to the other in a day, pretty much. So you're all over the place.
Yeah, we are all over the place. So the longest I've driven was last fall. It was for 12 hours. So I drove out to West Texas for a wedding.
12 hours in the same state. Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah, you can do that. You can do that very easily in Texas.
Like the Northeasterners are like, so what? What are you talking about? Okay, so that's kind of the basics. Sight and Sound Films is your company. You've been doing it for about 6 years. I wanted to talk a little bit about your business, just real quick before we jump into talking about consultations. On your website, it says you're starting around $4,000 for your packages. I just wanted you to kind of take me through, just very briefly, like where you started out on price, and how often you've raised those prices to get to where you're starting at now.
Yeah, so starting out, I'd have to remember where, especially when I went full-time, what the price was. But yeah, obviously, as normal, I started out the first 1 or 2 for free. I think my price was probably $500 to $800 maybe when we first started. I pretty quickly established about a 1,500 range here in my hometown. So Lufkin's not very big; it's about 40,000 people. Um, average income is pretty low as well, so
Sure.
they don't have a whole lot to spend on
Mm-hmm.
such frivolous things as wedding video.
Mm.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then it was just raising it by an increment every year, basically.
Okay.
And with working another job, I started out part time. I didn't have a whole lot of time to be able to sit back and say, what do my packages look like? What is it going to look like next year?
Mm-hmm.
And where do I need to be? So it was more just knee jerk reaction of like, hey, I need to make more money. Let's go up by another $300.
Okay. Yeah. And in your first year, how many weddings did you? I mean, roughly, do you film? Did you film the second year? You said you're in your sixth year, so kind of how many were you filming? How many is your goal now to be filming?
So I started out real slow. I started out probably with just a handful. I mean, you want me to think 6 years ago? It's going to be hard. But so now I shoot 20 weddings a year.
Okay.
So I've never shot more than 20. I just worked itself up to that. I think it was 8 at one point, then it was 12. I think I did 16, and then it's been 20 for the last 3 years.
Okay. And is that where you say at 20 I'm done for the year, or
I'm bringing it down next year. Yeah, I don't
Okay.
want to shoot. I don't even want to shoot 20 next year. I think
Yep.
my goal next year is for 2019 is 15 to 16 weddings.
Okay. And in your current collections, where do you like what all's included for that $4,000? And is that the average, or what all's included, and how do you go about it? Are you one with packages or a la carte, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, our pricing is structured still in packages. So yeah, it's really based. So I base it around my edit time actually. So it's according to the length of the film.
Okay.
Um, all my packages, and this can be controversial, all my packages include this 2 shooters for 10 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So and I have a 3 package system, so it's like a 5 minute, 7 minute, 10 minute.
Okay. So it goes up from there, and then the 10 minute. How much is the 10 minute one?
6,000.
Okay, so it's like 4, 5, and 6,000.
Yep.
Cool.
Just real easy.
And then, do you see the majority of brides booking your base one and then upgrading, or do they stick with the base, or is it kind of mixed
So
match?
so it's kind of specifically what I've wanted to shoot. So and that's where for the past 2 to 3 years I've been able to think ahead. So plan for the next year what will be the following year. So near the early of 2017, I wanted to only edit 5 minute films.
Mm-hmm.
So I only pushed 5 minute films.
Yep.
So about 75% of what I shot last year was, and this year was 5 minute films. So my average was, I think, 4,500.
Okay. And then, do you have add-ons? Like, I mean, does that include aerial
So
coverage, or what does that look like? Your add-on options.
yeah, so my package, each package includes 2 shooters, 10 hours. I include the full ceremony edit,
Mm-hmm.
and then I include the full first dances. So it'd be first dance and
Mm-hmm.
parent dances.
Yep.
And then the highlight. So that's all I get. So the add-ons are additional hours, rehearsal dinner, extra shooters, trailers, just kind of anything and everything
Yeah.
from there. I've got about I think 8 different add-ons that they can, and a majority of my weddings add on the rehearsal dinner too.
Okay. Yep. And what does that cost?
That's 1,500.
Okay. Cool. That's a great add-on. And then, from the time like that they're interested to booking, I guess, like what is the booking rate? Like, do you do a deposit? Do you do like how does that work for you?
The old deposit versus retainer.
Well,
Which-
how do they reserve you? Legally,
Yeah,
we're not
no,
going to hold you back. Your non-refundable deposit,
Right.
non-refundable retainer, depending on what state you're in.
Yeah, and I just read another post the other day about the wording doesn't even matter. Honestly, it has to be a separate charge
Yeah.
as a retainer, and then they have to pay. And I was like, yeah, that's not even. It's
Let
not
me
even in
rephrase
my
this.
wheelhouse.
What does it cost to reserve you for their wedding day?
So I do 40% of the package. So they
Okay.
write a check for whatever that is that retains us for the day.
Okay. Cool. And then the rest is kind of billed out one payment 30 days before the wedding, or a couple payments, or
Yeah, so it's all due 30 days before the wedding, and they can plan it out in installments, or they can just do a lump sum
gotcha.
whenever they're ready. I've had brides across the board that just write the whole check on
Yep.
booking. I've had them wait until exactly the 30-day mark.
Yeah.
I've had to track them down days before the wedding for not
Mm.
remembering it. So it's just kind of it's all
Yeah.
across the board.
Cool. Well, I think that sets like a good baseline for kind of the price range that you're, charging, the amount of weddings. You're not a volume brand. You're trying to be more boutique and more personal, and then the films themselves that you do, the ones that are on your site, the ones that I've seen you post, they're great. Would you kind of explain a little bit of your style to people? What your goal is? Like, what are you telling the couple? Like, I shoot trendy films, I shoot cinematic films, I shoot what would you say your style is if I was a bride interested in working with you?
Yeah, our the films that we want to film are very story based.
Hmm.
So we want to tell that story of the couple. It's less music video. It's less highlight. We try to we're capturing as much possible audio and as much about the two of them and about their love story as possible. Yeah, on first contact with the bride, we usually talk through the films that we create. We want them to be able to come back in 20 years and them to be able to stand stand that test of time. So
Hmm.
uh, I would shy away from trying to describe it as trendy and
Hmm.
just more of I don't know. You get into traditional, and it's not the
Yeah.
right word you
More
want to hear for
more
a
like a
wedding film,
timeless,
just classic, just
classic.
classic,
Yeah.
just a family heirloom that,
Yep.
yeah. And a lot of the kind of verbiage that I use would, if when your kids grow up and want to see how the two of y'all met, since we never get to see our parents meet,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
is this gonna be interesting for them to watch, and are they gonna learn something and not just see, you guys
Yeah.
dancing on the dance floor to Pitbull,
Yeah. Which I mean would be great, but
right?
okay. Well, I think that sets like a kind of a baseline of who you are. Your company. If you think of anything else you want to throw in, that's great. But I wanted to jump in about the initial meetings that you have with your brides, being from you might not be in the same city with them. But I want to read the post. Ben Mercedes made a post in the Wedding Film Academy group the other day. And he basically just said, like, what are some of your top questions to ask on a call with a bride, specifically your first call after they inquire? And, just thinking about when a bride reaches out to you, what do you do? All those things. I was getting ready to respond, and I read your answer, and I was like, yeah, that's what I would say. And your response, and I'm going to read your words while you're listening, so this will be fun.
Sure.
Um, I rarely ever talk wedding details, like ever. I get the bare necessities I need to know, like where and when, but I literally talk about everything else. I have to establish a baseline. Considering 90% of my work is referrals from past brides, we usually have to connect. I usually bring in what their process was in finding me, usually past bride, and they checked our Facebook or our website, and we get into how much we love watching wedding films, how we cry about people we don't know, how we should get together and obsess about other wedding videos together. We talk about where they live, we've both traveled, how they met, how I met, how they fell in love, how I fell in love. Honestly, I care as little about their wedding in the preliminary call as possible, um, while subtly getting all the details I can about their wants, needs, and lifestyle. My entire point is to establish a baseline of common interest and eventually trust between us. Does that help any? And I was like, that's what I'm saying. And so, like, I've been talking to Nick a lot about it because I think that the business side, I don't even want to call it the business side. I want to call it the relationship side. Like, I think it is more scary to us artistic people than we think. And we try to make it into too big of a thing. And like, people tell me all the time, like, you're such a good salesman. And I'm like, I'm not even trying to sell them anything. I'm just trying to build a relationship with them to see if they want to buy something from me. Like, it to see, and I'm doing the same thing in my initial consults, is I'm kind of gauging them to see if they are a good fit for me, not just like, okay, here's what I do, here's what I offer. And so I really thought that was cool how you know kind of worded that in a way that like you're rarely ever talking details. You're not trying to overload them with those kinds of details. So um, I want to kind of break that down a little bit, but just kind of before that, ask a little bit like where do you do your meetings and who do you like to be in those meetings?
Yeah, so that reading back that almost sounds so cold.
I
Like,
tried to. I
I
tried
don't
to.
care.
I
I
tried.
don't care at all about these people. I don't care about their wedding. I don't care about what's happening. But obviously that's the furthest from the truth. And it's interesting that you say, you don't. The business side of it is not really the appropriate description because you even mentioned like before we started recording, like you're either an artist or you're a businessman. It's almost what you have to be is in the middle, um, which is what I would just focus on of like we're just being humans with these people.
hmm
Like I don't want to be in sales with them. I'm not the artist that wants to talk about what camera and drone I use with them. Like my entire drive is just I'm a human, they're a human.
hmm
Let's have a conversation. Like
Exactly.
that's my entire point in those conversations. So, and I think we forget that very easily, which is because we have a product and they want a product,
Right.
and we let that get in the
We just
way.
get straight down to it. It seems as though a lot of people are just like, here are my packages. Here's what's in them. Here's all the details. Do you want to book us? And
Well,
the
and you've mentioned it in past podcasts, they've never done this before.
Mhm.
Hopefully, maybe they have at
They
least
haven't
one
done
or
this
at
more
least one
than
or two times.
2 or 3 times max.
But they, yeah, they don't know anything else than to ask the questions. Well, how
Right.
much are your packages? Well, how many hours do you have in that package? Do you fly a drone? What kind of, are you
Yeah.
allowed to do that? It's like none of those things are what I want to talk about
Mm-mm.
because I want to talk about them and I want to build a connection with them.
Mhm. And so exactly the same thing for us. I mean, I have the ability if I want to if they ask me a detail, I can give them if they're like, "Well, what kind of cameras do you use?" It's like, "Well, this is what I use." But if if I'm overloading them with those details, like I can see their eyes just kind of get, like glassed over and they're like, "What in the world?" Like I don't know. They only know what they've read on the knot.com and like I like to be this breath of fresh air where it's just like tell me about your wedding. Tell me. But the question: where do you do your meetings? Who do you like to be in those meetings?
Okay, so let's talk through how how's first contact with us. So, what I said on that post, about 90% of our weddings are straight referral. So that's a big. We can talk about this later, but like that's a big thing when people are starting out and they're like, how do you advertise? Where do you advertise?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you put money in? We used to throw some dollars on Facebook boosts forever ago, but we don't. We don't spend advertising dollars. Our clients are our advertisement. That is where we invest. So when a bride comes to us, majority of the time it's from someone that it's from a past bride, from a video. So as soon as they email us, and our email form is pretty standard, it's always got our beginning price, so they always know. It's got what their story is, who they are. We'll make sure to collect phone number and email,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, um, and we'll send them back just an introductory email, and I'll text them at the same time, just because sometimes the email gets lost, and I want that direct connection.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, usually that starts it off where it's just like, hey, hey, this is Phil. You just emailed me, just wanted to check in. Um, and then we'll set up a phone call. And the phone call is my first connection.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I usually always take it out of my office, but that's just my personality because I do my best. Like my personality lends itself to an open space, so I can't creatively think when I'm in a
Mm-hmm.
small office.
Mm-hmm.
So I always just, even if I'm at my house, which is where my office has been for the past 3 months, I'll just walk straight out on the porch, take the phone call, and I'll be out there for 20 minutes
Mm-hmm.
until we wrap. And it's just everything. The phone call, I actually just had a phone call this morning. It was from a bride that had emailed us 6 months ago who had dropped off the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And she sent us an email again saying, hey, is that date next year still open? And I was in a client meeting last night in Dallas, and I texted her, yeah, text me anytime. Let's talk in the morning. So we talked, and there's always, and in that conversation, all I'm doing is just getting to know them. Where their venue's at? Oh, it happened to be 30 minutes from where I lived for 2 years. We
Mhm.
talk about the area, how much we love it. She was a dancer for the San Antonio Spurs. I knew a dancer for the San Antonio Spurs back in the day, so we talked if we had that connect, which we didn't. So it's anything like that that I pick up on, and that's the first phone conversation. That's the first, like, hey, what's up? I'm Phil. Let's get to know each other. Who else is on the phone? Her mom's on the phone. I love moms of brides. They're amazing people. They're the first line of defense because they're planning everything right
Yep.
there with them. Um, but yeah, it's just getting to know each other. It's just finding any connection I can in that first phone call
Yep.
to get it. So we actually, because the breakdown is, so I live in Lufkin, which is 2 hours from Houston, 3 hours from Dallas, 4 hours from Austin, and 5 hours from San Antonio. Um, 18 of my 20 brides are not in my town.
Hmm.
So I have to go, I have to drive somewhere to be able to meet these brides. So our process is I can usually book from a phone call.
Hmm.
Once we're booked, um, we'll set up a time, and it's usually near the wedding when we'll meet. So we have enough back and forth over email, text, and phone prior to meeting,
Hmm.
but we always meet about 2 months out before the wedding.
Okay.
So that's completely different than some because a lot of them will meet face to face very early on. And I know you get that sit down pretty early on, even before booking. And because of my geography at the moment, I just can't do that.
Of course.
I don't have the time to invest in traveling to all these cities to meet them prior to booking.
And how
So
great of a time is it where we can, FaceTime or Google Hangout or whatever? I mean, if you need to, and if you're good, like I would throw in there, if you're good at like face to face communication, but you're 3 hours away from the nearest city, FaceTime calls or Google, like set up your office and like being able to. I know it's a little awkward, but like, you don't usually make direct eye contact the whole time, but like having the ability to do those meetings like that, um, super great. But so
it's
you're,
hard. It's hard over the phone to be able to read body language.
yeah.
And
And
that is a huge amount of interaction. So when you don't have that, you can't tell when something you said has made them go,
mhm,
like that's not feeling right with me.
right,
You don't get that because all you have is tone and inflection. So there's a huge difference there. You're right.
right. So your first phone call, like a bride reaches out to you like today at 1:30, and you are trying within an hour probably, during office hours to text them, email them back real quick, try to get a phone call with them. When can you talk on the phone kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah. If
Um,
they email, if I get the email in, I mean, the majority of them go through my website. I'll
yep,
immediately email them back and text and just say, hey, when's the earliest you guys can jump
yep,
on a phone call? The
yeah,
the bride. So last night we drove up to Dallas, so it's 3 hours, and this is pretty. This is normal for us. I will say this process we did this year. The process of meeting our clients in person for drinks, no matter where they are. We made a huge push um, this year to do that,
mhm,
to make sure that we were investing in every single one of our clients that we possibly could, because I was experiencing just a lack of connection
yep,
with my brides and with I would film incredible films. I would have a great time that day. They would too. But then not, I would not get any referrals from them.
mhm,
And that just felt weird. I was like, this is interesting. I don't know what's going on. So we made a huge push last fall to say, okay, every single bride that we can, we're going to take out for drinks,
mhm,
no matter what, no matter where they are.
yeah. That's awesome.
Um, and so because of that, it's an instant. Hey, what's going on? Where are you? What can I? So last night's bride. Let's just talk just an example. I posted a wedding film I had shot in Dallas, and it actually took a while to post. We posted it on their 1 year anniversary. They had some re-edits. It was just a back and forth. They were always traveling. I was always busy. It was just this back and forth. They weren't too worried about getting it out. So obviously I wasn't worried about getting it out. The day we posted, she emailed me and said, "Oh my God, I love this. She was my college friend. Like I watch, I watch wedding videos all the time and I cry even though I never meet these people." And I'll read you the email I sent back. I said, this is all I responded. I said, "I would love to chat. I too love watching wedding videos and getting emotional. Any chance you're available right now for a call?" And she said, "Hey, I'm in a meeting right now, but let's talk in 10 minutes. We jumped on a call. It was basically, it was booked that day. And that was back in August. So we just met and had dinner last night, had drinks at a wine bar in Dallas.
Yep.
And when we drove 3 hours up there, we had dinner for an hour and a half and we drove 3 hours back.
That's commitment, man. That's impressive. I don't know if I would do that.
And this is what I'll say, because I am incredibly different in the approach I have to take, because I don't live because I didn't build a local market out, because my local market can't afford me.
Yeah, that's true.
And so
you got to do what you got to do.
With Texas being my market, and with this process, with me realizing last year I wasn't having this connection with my brides, I wasn't building this trust. This is what I'm having to do now, and it won't always be like that.
Right.
It won't always be like that. Next year we'll be located in Austin, and our hope is that our brides will come to us, because Austin is a huge hub, and all of my brides this year that we've met with, we've asked, because we know we've been moving to Austin. We've asked, "Hey, you guys go to Austin a lot?" And they all say yes.
Sure.
So it'll be much easier next year to say, swing by.
You'll like that a lot.
Yeah, it'll save on a babysitter bill, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to jump in a little bit to, like, what is said during your phone calls. I get messages all the time from different people that know about the fact that I'm pretty good at, like, the booking and that side of things, that are just like, what are the questions that you ask? What are the things that you do? I know I read what you said, but like, in those meetings, you said they're about a 20-minute phone call. You like mom to be there if possible, which I 1,000,000% agree. I always ask them, just as a tip. I'm like, in a way, if I can work it in via text or whatever, just like, hey, it helps if whoever's paying for it is able to be on the call too. Just to say, or who's paying for this? Like, I felt like that was a weird question to ask, but a friend photographer of mine was like, I always ask him who's paying for it, because I don't want to do a phone call, spend 30 minutes on the phone with them, and then be like, okay, cool, let me talk to my mom. And then mom's like, who's this photographer or videographer that wants to charge you $7,500 for a wedding video? The prices over here are this much. Why don't we? But if mom's in that initial call, you build that relationship with her. If she's the one that's writing the checks, or if dad is, or if the groom is, right, whoever it is, you want to make sure that the decision makers are in that room, whether you're meeting together or apart. That's just a little side note. But in your consultations or your phone calls or whatever you call them, walk me through just like how that really works for you. I know in the text there that you've said, different things you do, but are you starting it out and then you're trying to, you said, make a connection? Tell me what that looks like for you. Like, what are you trying to do with the connection? Are you trying to see what vendors they use so you can, like, kind of gauge what they're spending? What's going through your mind at the beginning of the call, besides just like, you're a person, I'm a person?
Right. Okay. Well, we're going to get deep for a minute. No.
Yes.
That's exactly where you wanted this podcast to go.
That's the purpose of this podcast, is to go deep.
Well, I'm going to say this. So my wife is the business side of it, and I'm the artist side of it. Mm-hmm. You should probably have her on for your next episode.
Yes. To be continued.
But because she came on last year full time, because she was working a full time job for the first couple of years. So now she shoots with me and edits, as well as doing all of the business side of it. But I told her, I just got back from 3 weeks in Guatemala, and I told her, really, if you found a solid shooter, you've basically replaced me in this entire equation. So can we please not do that? So I have to keep her away from the good shooters, or else I could be out of this entire business. So yeah, the entire, and that is such a huge part, I think, of building that trust, because once they do trust you, and once you've proven yourself that you're an ally and you're not just selling products, you're not just the vendor they talk to on the phone, then decisions are made so much more easily on their end. And
Totally.
let's be honest, we're all. I was just talking to my brother today, and he said I should use the quote from that movie Crash with Don Cheadle,
Mm-hmm.
that like we just miss being able to touch something, that we crash into each other just to feel something. But I think we're all looking for connection. So
Mm-hmm.
any connection I can make with them on a personal level, and we're not getting in talking about their parents or anything, but we're gonna talk about, well, just like this morning's phone call, we're gonna talk about where we lived. We're gonna talk about what we love about the area. She lives in Austin. I live in East Texas. We're instantly talking about the weather because we're in the middle of hurricane season, and then it can go a million ways in the conversation. I want to know, where do they travel, where they travel, do they love it, what they do in the evenings. But none of these are questions. I mean, I've got about 20 questions that I want answered, but I'm
Right.
not going to ask them as a list.
There's not like a
I don't
formula.
have,
Yeah.
yeah, there's no formula. It's just over the last couple of years, not over the last couple of years, I've always been good at this, but it's just building the art of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Because I notice, and this comes a lot from commercial interviews as well, for the commercial side of the business we do as well, which is, while you can have a set list of interview questions, but if you're not listening to the answers,
Right. They can feel it.
then you're not getting to the real story. So that's how I would fashion out my formula, which is, I'm asking questions, but I don't have the next question in mind. I'm listening to what they say.
Right.
Because if they say, well, our wedding is in Spring Branch, and I answer, well, Spring Branch was 2 miles down the road from where I lived for 3 years. And they go, oh my God, I love that area. Like, why did you live there? Well, now we're connecting over
Right.
how much we love the hill country. And I can talk about how much, and I always mention this, I say, the hill country, there's a way it just gets into your bones.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because for me, it's absolutely real. I spent 5 years over there. I can't wait to get back. And most of the weddings that I try to book in the hill country, it's why I love it out there. It's just
Mm-hmm.
a gorgeous area of Texas. And I know there's a specific area of the trees when I drive into the hill country that it's like a wave that just passes me, and I'm like, I'm back here. I'm home. And if I can explain that to them, if I can talk that to them, their love of where they live, where they're getting married, then we have a connection for there. And then
You're a real person.
we just build on that. We go into our love of wedding videos. I'm like, did you guys watch one of my wedding videos? And it's usually a good question to find which one they watched.
Yep.
Like, which one was the deciding factor? What video? They'll always say, I watched all of your wedding videos.
Uh-huh. And that's a good sign.
And I'm like, okay, that's, back up, Hannibal. I was like, so well, which one was like your favorite? And if they can say their favorite, there's always an aspect to that.
Mm-hmm.
There's always well, I like this one. And I was like, oh my God, that speech from her dad.
Mm-hmm.
And then she'll go into talking about her and her dad's relationship.
Yep.
And it's like, that phone conversation could be 20 minutes. It could be an hour long.
Yep.
It's completely different, but all I'm doing in that moment is building a human connection, because if I'm going to walk into a store and want to buy a product and there's a salesman there, I've got zero interest in what his opinion is.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Exactly.
But if I build this rapport with another human, when it comes to, well, we don't really have the budget for the rehearsal dinner, then I can instantly step in and say, okay, so here's the thing that our past clients have loved about the rehearsal dinner, is the fact that the sentiments that their parents share that night will be captured forever. And years from now, because let's be honest, our parents are not always going to be with us, you can instantly go back and click play and hear what your dad said.
That'll preach.
Because I know that she's got a special relationship with her dad, because the wedding that she watched and connected had the speech from the dad in it.
Yeah, and that's
And,
huge.
and if you're not listening, if you're going, okay, my next question is, where did they go to college?
Right.
And you're not listening, because that's all it is. It's not quite rabbit trailing, but it's that art of rabbit trailing where you're asking a question and then you're listening to the answer and you're picking that thing that you can connect with, and then you're running with it. And then you're listening to the next answer and you're taking that next little gem and you're running with that. And pretty soon, 30 minutes later, you've built something
Hmm.
that you can keep texting from then on.
Right. And I think too, just like if the, you know where you're heading in the phone call, like the goal of the phone call would be to see if you're a good fit for them and they're a good fit for you. And if you know that goal, it's really easy to kind of in the rabbit trails at least be heading this this direction. You might be like taking the scenic route to the location, but
Exactly.
and one thing that I do in the beginning of my conversations with people, and you said something earlier about making them an ally, and I think this is really cool. I kind of throw it out there that like, hey, I know like after I've booked, after I've booked their meeting, and mine are usually in person, you know, I know that like they know my prices. I know that that check mark is, that the box is checked. I know they love my films. I know they've heard about me, and so I am building. The first step for me is to make a connection, and then the next thing is I'm trying to remove any awkwardness or any thoughts from them that I'm going to try to pull one over them and be a salesman to them. So I just straight up say, hey, just so you know, where I want this meeting, the goal of this meeting for me is not to try to see how much stuff I can sell you. I have enough weddings booked where if you don't think I'm a good fit, I'm going to eat just fine. My wife's going to still love me, and I make kind of a joke of it where it's like, my goal isn't to see how much I can sell you. My goal at the end of this meeting is to see if you get the warm fuzzies about me and if I get the warm fuzzies about you. And so the point of today, I can answer all the details, all those kinds of things. But my point of today is to kind of relate what it is that I think that I can do for you for your wedding film, more so than all the details. I can get geeky and I'll tell them, I can go super geeky and tell you that I use these microphones and these lenses and these lights or whatever, but what drew you to us is X, Y, and Z. And so that, making them an ally once they, especially if mom is there, and if you can be connecting with, mom and the daughter, where they realize, hey, this guy, came from referrals. He's got all 5-star reviews everywhere. He's got a great rapport, and we really like this guy. If they realize, oh, this guy's going to be on our team, and I will tell them, hey, if you book us, you're part of our family now. Like our brides are our family, and so we're going to be a mother hen. Or if somebody's bugging you, we'll kick them out of the room. We're on your team. You're always on time. We're like reiterating to them, like no matter what happens on the day, my goal is to make it where you can take a deep breath, you can relax, and you can like actually enjoy the reason that you're there, the reason that you're getting married, your husband or your wife, or And so we just at the very beginning throw that out there. Like my goal isn't, hey, I'm gonna try to sell you something. My goal is to see if you think I'm a good fit. I know I'm in a good position where I'm gonna have enough money coming in. My business is strong enough to where I don't have to book you to eat. My goal is to only work with 20 brides a year. I've got about 13 of my spots filled up, and I want to see if you're the right fit for us and we're the right fit for you. And that kind of deflates the room and like makes the pressure go away. And then it's like, let's just talk. Tell me about, the things. Tell me about your story. Tell me, and all of those things, like you saying, making that connection. You think about going to like a mechanic or going to like a clothing store, like a nice clothing store, and the guy's like, "Can I start you a room?" And it's weird at first, but then he's like, "Well, okay. Well, what kind of clothes do you like? What kind of colors do you like? What kind of cuts do you like? Do you like your pants this way?" He's asking you questions. Are you going to an event? Are you doing a thing? And then by the end of it, it's like you want to go to drinks with the guy that the guy that does a good job of selling. You have a connection with, and so if he was just like, "We have 20% off today on all the," it's like like clothing stores are annoying that do that. The whole store is 20% off on this and that. And so like building that rapport, making those allies, it makes it very easy to lead them down the path to see if they are ready to book you on that day. So that was really cool. The ally part of it, as you're talking, I'm making notes, and it's very similar approach to the way I
Yeah.
do it.
One, the thing I love about this is both of us have very different approaches, and
Mhm.
we have different clientele, and that's the incredible thing about this industry is that every single person can have their own way of doing things and their own relating to their clients and their own how they're building their company out, and there is no formula, there is no, and that's what I love and hate about our Facebook groups and stuff like that,
Mhm.
because the idiotic questions are like, well, what's your process? I'm going to take that process and I'm going to apply it directly to me, and then I'm going to get pissed that the results aren't the same. But it's like you've got an entirely different way of approaching it than I do, but yet both of our businesses are flourishing, and we're both building our family of clients. I'm gonna so I'm gonna spin off from what you said, which is, I mean, what you added to, which was the ally.
Yeah.
So the great thing, I think, and since I'm so new, I mean, I consider myself new in this industry. 3 years full time is in no way. I mean, I'm still a child for most of it. Um, so I'm always bouncing what I'm learning against what did I wish was told to me
Hmm.
when I first started, or what did I wish I would have known a year ago than I know now? What have I learned? But as we're presenting ourselves as this ally to them, that's our goal in this, is to build that connection, to have that trust. And it's not the trust so when you say you need a rehearsal dinner, they buy the rehearsal dinner. It's just like you say, it's just like sales. It's just like a car sale. The good car salesmen aren't going, you need this vehicle. It's listening to their needs and then delivering them an option that is best going to suit their needs
Hmm.
and isn't something that I'm just trying to push this month. As you're building yourself as that ally, you're building an ally in them.
Hmm. That's
And
huge.
when you, so you're starting it, but when you walk away and that answers the question, how do I get more bookings? How do I get brides to trust me? How do I grow my business? I'm only shooting 5 a month. It's like, yes, but as you take these steps to create yourself as an ally and to create that connection, you're investing in your own end game, in the fact that they walk away saying, "Oh my God, this guy is the most incredible." It's not like, "Well, who did you have video your wedding?" And I'm like, I don't, some Danger somebody, I think is
Hmm.
his middle name. Like, I don't really remember.
Right.
Like, the answer I want is, "Oh my God, I tell everyone about y'all."
Hmm.
And then I'm like, "Well, I saw you at a wedding last week in Phoenix and I wasn't there, so you must not be telling everybody about me." But that's your end goal, is that and that's the entire point of this process. That's why last year I felt a disconnect and we've completely changed our system up, is because, and it has changed. The clients that are coming in are going, "Oh, we heard about you from this person." The post wedding relationship is completely different. And that's all built on how we treat them on the first phone call, how we treat them on the first email, how we treat them at the first, meeting. It's I'm their ally, but I want them to be my ally. And I
Right.
can't and you can't buy that. The amount of money you can drop in investing on Facebook and Instagram and all that cannot buy you that ally on your side saying, "I'm an advocate for this company."
And I'll say this year, 2018, I've spent less than $100 total on marketing, boosting just a couple of videos that I wanted to show up on Facebook, because we have spent the last 6 years with this model, thinking long term. And so, like, if you're thinking, how can I close the sale today? If you're thinking about today, your needs, your now, instead of how can I build a lifelong client that refers me, it's just a mindset shift. If you're thinking, okay, I want to treat this person as though I'm going to be friends with them on Facebook forever. They're going to know me forever. Their friends are going to use me for their wedding. I'm going to see them at other weddings and they want to give me a hug. I was at the park yesterday with my family in Tulsa. I saw two of my brides, different scenarios, but they walked up. They're like, "Oh my God, John, how are you?" And and it's like the groom's even like, John, what's up, man? How you been? And like, I love your, like, I'm so happy I get to meet your daughters, and I'm so happy that you get to meet ours. And building that long term connection um, is like the most important thing that you can do. And if you're thinking that way in your consultations, in your phone call, it totally changes the way that you do all of it. Um, I will say too that like my goal, working through the entire process is to be sticky. And not just sticky in the fact that it's weird, but like I want them to remember me. I want something about me to be just very memorable. I want to make them feel so loved and taken care of. I don't want them to leave feeling like they need to take a bath because, I was just so icky, in my sales. Don't be icky, be sticky. That's a new shirt idea. I'll put that
Yep.
one in the books. But anyway, I mean, legitimately on the wedding day, I am the same, like I am not just John Bunn in the meeting. I am John Bunn, the owner of Redeemed Productions. So it's like almost a persona that I put on that like I'm lifting the room even if I don't feel good. I'm making their day better. And that's from the very beginning till every single time I see them. It's not, like you go to the gym and your trainer is like, "Oh, I don't want to be here today." It's like, "Well, neither do I. You're supposed to want to make me be here today." It's like but it's one of those things where like you have to be thinking, is what I'm wearing, is what I'm saying, are the words that I'm using going to bode well for me in the future? And the personality that I'm bringing to the table, that's what they're buying. And so the more that you can just remove all the fluff and get to your personality, the quicker you're going to, like, if you are giving them your all and your personality and they're just sitting there like, I don't care, like bump on a log, they're not the right fit for you. And so really building that personality into it as well with that long-term thinking um, has been this year the best for me because the brides that come to me, everything that I'm putting out there on my social networks is about, the brand that we have built, about the people that we are, the kind of brides we're looking for. You might be a Redeemed Productions bride if on our website, and it says 10 things that, you're not our bride if video is just another item on the list. And so I'm doing my best, to really be pushing that from the very beginning all the way to the end, where at the end of the wedding process, I've got like a walking, talking billboard. It's not a Facebook ad that shows up for a day. And I think I could say that about you and your company too. It's just the referral side of thing that you're talking about and the amount of weddings that you're booking just off of referrals. This short in, 3 years full time to say you have 90% of your work is referrals. Um, you know, we can look for processes. We can look for, a checklist of questions to ask to get them saying certain things and do sales meetings and like, sales classes and all this stuff. But what it really comes down to is just treating them like people, building a connection, building an ally, and long term thinking.
It's investment in people. It's investment in people, and that's what I don't. It's like, okay, where are we going to spend our investment dollars this year? Are we going to go to a workshop? Are we going to go to, are we going to try to rebuild and focus again? Are we going to, this, RIP. But it's, where is this going to, where is our money going to be spent? And we said, we're going to put it into our couples. We're going to, like it cost us to wine and dine our couples.
Mm-hmm.
It cost us childcare. It cost us hours of driving. It cost us that wine and cheese plate bill. And our process is always, hey, we're gonna get to know you guys. We're gonna take a night. And we always, our process is always, what's your normal spot? Like, where do you two like to go? Where do you go and wind down and have a glass of wine?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Let's meet there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go there. We spend. So my wedding last weekend was in Houston, and it was a classic success story for me. I wasn't shooting it with Delaney. I was shooting it with a buddy of mine, Daniel. It's Studio 1441 in Houston, and it's like you and Nick probably. We've been working together this is almost 3 years. We usually shoot with each other probably 5-6 weddings a year. and we're constantly on the phone every single day, bouncing ideas back and forth. But I had the client meeting. He was shooting that one with me, so I said, "Hey, come along, let's go meet him." Our client meetings are usually an hour. We get a glass of wine, we chat, we get to know
Mhm.
them. I think that ended up at 4 hours.
Mhm.
Like we had 4 or 5 beers, we had a couple bottles of wine, and I was like, "All right, we're winding up. Let me go and get the bill." I got the bill. We were there for another hour and a half after that, um, and then we shot this last weekend, and it was incredible.
Of
Like
course.
we both stepped in. We were family. She was like, "Get in here, like let's do this." There were times where it was lulling, and I was like, "I know these people. Like these people are my friends. I know exactly what's going on. Like I know when to step in, when to step out, when they're uncomfortable. I know the history with the dad, with the parents.
Yeah,
Like
you
it's
got it all.
all there that it just completely changes versus I know the difference between 2 weeks ago. We never got to meet the bride and groom because of their schedule, and we stepped in, meeting them on the day of, and it was hard to create that connection, and it was hard to get what we needed. We still got what we needed, but it's just much harder. And at the end of the night last week, she was like, "Are you done? Are we finished? We did the exit. Put the cameras down, get a drink, and get on this dance floor with us."
Mhm.
And I was like, "All right. Well, I mean, you're the bride, so yes, ma'am. Like we're there." But it's that investment in people. And if I could not stress that enough to people that are starting out, going, "How do I get better gear? Like I've got 25 extra $100. What do I do?" I'm like, "Are you getting to know your people?"
Mhm.
Like that's the only thing that matters. When you run 10 weddings in a row, like are you just here's another bride and groom, let me do the same stuff? Or are you like this is a couple whose two families are coming together. This will hopefully never happen again in their lives, and you owe it to them to give them the best investment you possibly can, and that's just starting with treating them like human beings.
Mhm.
And the benefit of that is that there are advocates now. That's the benefit. But if even if they weren't, it's where I want to be. I would much rather just have made friends with them. And I'll tell you, the ones that haven't booked, that I've done this entire process with as well, have loved me for just helping them out.
Yeah.
Just being there was one from Nashville that ended up not actually hiring me. And she was like, "It's sad that we won't be able to work together because you're an awesome guy. But, like, thanks for helping me find someone. Thanks for talking through the process with me." And I'm just like, that's what I'm here for.
Mhm.
I don't have to sell you.
Mhm.
If we're not the right fit, then that's it. I'm going to help you find the right fit for you.
Mhm.
And
And
that's what happened.
I think that just goes so far with people. Like, I mean, the other day, my car was making some kind of noise, so I took it to a mechanic that I trust, and he said, "Let me check it out. I'll call you right back." An hour later, he said, "Oh, you had something in a tube. I don't know. I had something clogging a tube. I know nothing about cars, but he was like, cost you nothing, no big deal." And like he could have said it was $250, and I would have been like, "Okay, yeah, it's 200. I don't know. Like I don't know anything about cars. Like they don't know anything about this except for what they've seen on TV. They don't know. And whenever they like the next time something happens to my car, like I'm going to take it right back to that place, and hopefully I don't have to have something wrong with my car. But like if the transmission went out of my car and it was a $2,500 fix, guess where I'm going is to the person that built a relationship with me. And that's kind of in wrapping this thing up, the goal for me with and Nick with this is we want to show people that like the business of filming weddings, shooting weddings is a very personal thing, but it doesn't just happen overnight. Especially now with all these Facebook forums and all these groups, people are seeing some of us that have been doing this 10 plus years and charging lots of money and traveling and doing all these things. And they just wonder if they're ever going to get there. And I want to remind people that it was like my seventh year before my company hit a six figure, income for the company. That was 5 years ago. And so 7 years in, which is longer than most people listening's business has been in, was the first time that I ever did that. But like, I knew at the beginning that I wasn't going to cut any corners. I was going to take care of people. I was going to continue to like build relationships, ask for referrals, like build that relationship, always go above and beyond, and slow and steady build brick by brick by brick to where now, 12 years in, I'm spending $0 on marketing. 99% of the brides that I've worked with over the last 3 years have been nothing but awesome and loved us and asked us, where do we want, when do we want things to happen? And it's like these ideal clients 12 years in, 500 weddings in. And so, a lot of people that are just getting into this and really, I want to be an encouragement to them to slowly build over time, be making those connections, think long term. And that's the common thing that I keep seeing. And that's why I loved your answer to that question in the group, was that it wasn't just about like, how can I sell them something now? It was, how can I build that relationship? So any final thoughts from you before I sign off?
I think with just how different both of our business models are, I think it's something to remember that that your business is a reflection of what you want it to be. Because like you said, it's very easy. We do the comparison game so much as videographers, like my huge thing is stop watching other wedding videos. Like just stop it. It is killing you as a creative to do that. But my business model, how I find clients, how I book, how many I book, what months I take off, that is a direct reflection of me, what I want my business to be. I don't have to book 80 weddings a year. I don't even have to book 20 weddings a year. And I've got no judgment against people that book 100 weddings a year or only do 12 a year. We're so specific, but yet, we look and it's like, okay, who's the top tier now? We got White and Reverie up there. They're doing weddings in every continent. I got to go do that. I got to be on flights every single month. Like I got to get that niche down. It's like, but is that you? Is that does that work for you? Does it work for your wife? Do you have kids? Does that give you enough time off? Like, yeah, I'm in my 6th year, 3rd year full time, and we're doing only 20 weddings a year. It's perfect for me and my wife, for what we want our life to look like. We took this summer off. I don't think we shot any in June or July. I hate Texas summers. They're horrible. But I didn't feel the need to, I'm not shooting weddings. I've got to shoot weddings. I'm like, no, this is my life. Mm-hmm. And that's what the response I've heard back from our wedding clients through our Instagram, through following my stories, through stuff like that. It's like, we love how authentic you guys are. Mm-hmm. We love following along. So I would just say, like, whatever that business model is, figure it out, but make sure that you're not trying to be Redeem Productions. You're not trying to be Ray Roman if that's not who you want to be, if that doesn't work with your lifestyle. You're not trying to be White and Reverie. You're not trying to be Philip Danger Harbuck over here. I built this model, and this model works for me.
Exactly.
And there is no cookie cutter. It's just the quicker I learned that, the much easier. And I think in this industry especially, it's because you look at those guys and you go, why can't I be there? There is no top of the industry. There's a ladder that goes up, and I'm 2 rungs below that guy. Mm-hmm. And in a year, that's where I'll be. And in a year, he'll be in a different spot. There's no top tier that you get to. The guys at the top are going, I hate this work I'm doing. I want to get better. Mm-hmm. And I'm at the bottom going, I hate this work. I want to get better. And you're in the middle going, I hate this work. I'm going to get better. That's it. It's just a ladder, and it doesn't ever stop.
I love it. Hey, Phil, thank you so much for taking an hour to talk to us and our listeners. I really do appreciate it. Be sure to check out Phil's website, Sight and Sound Films. Don't watch his films because he doesn't want you to watch them. But thank you so much for coming on today. But we will, he's laughing at me. I'm wrapping this thing up. Thank you so much, Phil, for being on. To everybody listening, we will see you in the next podcast. Until next time, see ya.